Howdy folks, Rudrose here, and today I wanted to do a bit of a quick recap of DLC and Richmond this weekend. So I was not there, unlike Milwaukee, so I won't have as much to say over this one, but I wanted to at least go over the top 8 decks and just a few things I've heard about the event, etc. So, hope you enjoy. Now, first I just have a few little words about the event itself. Again, this is not from me personally because I was not there, but it's things I noticed either through the stream or from people who had been there. And I've always, I've been plenty harsh on Ravensburger in the past and will always continue to do so when I think they deserve it, but I'm a fair person and they deserve credit where credit is due. And from everything I have heard, Richmond was a much improved experience versus Milwaukee. I could even tell it just from the stream, like the decor looked a lot better. Milwaukee was this big open concrete room. It looks like there was carpeting around this one. The setup for the feature match seemed more of an actual setup instead of tucked into a corner. So there were some things I could just tell from watching the stream that I thought looked better. And then I have some reports from them as well. So this is from Rules of Villainy Andy. Rules of Villainy is a friend of the show. Go check out their channel if you haven't already. Now Andy made day 2. So he was, very positive about his experience, and this is just his account. So, take it with the grain of salt that comes with a single account. But he said I could quote him, so here's his exact quote. So he says, and I quote, "I know I have my biases, and I'm going to have fun regardless, but in my opinion, basically all of the issues from Milwaukee were fixed in Richmond. The only issue in Richmond that I had was the delay between rounds / the tournament taking longer than preferred, which in Milwaukee was a play hub issue, and in Richmond it seemed to be just a general players not reporting matches issue. Parentheses, and that one time some threw up on their match probably because their opponent opened with 4 daisies." End quote, or end parentheses. Still quote, "Prize tickets were far more attainable, prize wall items were more reasonably priced, they added collection quests, a kids area, Friday side events, the stream / feature match production was ramped up, the decor was increased, they gave refunds if you wanted to drop a side event, all lines were much," and capitalized, "quicker. I'm sure I'm missing some things, but I think overall it was a huge capital improvement." So that was from Andy. He was reporting a lot of good things, that they'd improved a lot. I talked to a few other people in the St. Louis scene, and they said, yeah, they really agreed, and they thought overall it was a much better experience in Milwaukee. My friend Megan even joked, well, that's more reason to not go to the first DLC of the season. I did hear one complaint from someone who said one of the things they wanted to bring was the side event. Apparently the side event room was like really far away from the main event room. They thought it was almost like a 2-city block walk, like you had to go through this skyline to this other section of the building. So that is very strange. Supposedly they had maybe like a cheerleading competition or some kind of dance thing there, that maybe that's what was taking up the space. But that was essentially the biggest complaint I heard, was that just the side event area was so far away from the main event area. But otherwise, it sounds like it was an overall improvement to the experience in Milwaukee, which is sour grapes for me and the people who only got to go to Milwaukee and couldn't go to Richmond. But again, credit where credit's due. I challenge them to do better, and it sounds like they did better. My buddy Justin went, I think, like 6-1 on the Friday side event. My friend Heath from Be Our Guest, he was crushing it in the draft. Like, I'm just so glad they added that in, and it's still so baffling why they wouldn't have had that originally. But they at least improved it, and so now the challenge going forward for Season 3 is Ravensburger. Okay, but don't do this again next time. Don't regress again, and then, you fix it. Like, don't get me wrong, fixing it is better late than never, but just get it right the first time. People want side events on the Friday. That shouldn't be some revelation. They want attainable prize wall stuff. You've done this twice now, so good job on this one. Again, from everything I've heard, wasn't there, but good job on just making it better. Thank you. Please continue that trajectory. Please do not regress again. Next, we'll go over the ink color pairings that showed up. So this are the day 1 statistics. Surprisingly, every single ink color was represented. I guess you always have people out there playing for fun, or maybe someone truly believes in something like Emerald Ruby, which is the least represented color. No surprise, Amethyst Steel is the most represented pairing. Took up essentially a quarter of the room. Again, it's the most consistent. Nothing here really surprises me. Emerald Sapphire, Amethyst Sapphire, Amber Emerald Dogs, these are all the top ones, with the top 3 having over a double-digit margin, 10% up. Everything below had less. Ruby Amethyst, Amber Emerald, that's all about where I expect to be. Same with Sapphire Steel, same with Amethyst Emerald, yeah. What's really kind of crazy is just compared to the last DLC, Amber Steel is clearly the biggest outlier, that that was one of the 4 core decks, and I think it just shows you how much the power creep from this set really, really hurt that deck. You have things like the Tiana specifically, right? She was pretty well protected in the last set. There was very few cards that could actually like interact with her favorably, but now you have Lexington on 3 who can one-shot both her and Daisy. You have the Headless Horseman if you're running, Ruby Amethyst, that now, yeah, he's on 5, but he's still a card that just can check her immediately, and then he buffs the rest of the board to run into them. Something like Cheshire Cat 2 now allows you to, if they put out a lady, as long as they can challenge one thing, they then move that 2 damage over to the lady. So Amber Steel really, really fell off hard, which I guess makes Amber Emerald Dogs the premier aggro deck now. Although, depending on the version you're playing, you could argue it's not really an aggro deck, it's like more combo-y. Moving on to day 2. And this is our conversion rate to the top cut, and here we see a ton of colors dropping off. Ruby Steel, no surprise. Emerald Ruby, Amber Ruby, of course, no surprise. And man, what a difference! Ruby Sapphire used to be one of the kings of the game, and now no one even plays it. But of course, why would you? Because it's just been completely gutted. Same with Emerald Steel, just 2 major meta contenders there, just completely fell off. A little bit of Amber Steel did convert. Amber Sapphire, I will show that deck. But actually, Blurple had a really strong day in conversion rate. Amethyst Steel still very good. If a quarter of the room was playing it, nearly a quarter converted here as well. Pretty much the same order we saw, other than Ruby Amethyst drops a bit. Sapphire Steel actually jumps up, so that actually converted just a little bit better. I don't put too much stock in conversion rates. There's so many things that go into a tournament, matchups and how your deck functions. Your deck can just dead draw on one round, cost you a game. So, like, again, I don't put an over amount of stock in this, but it's not like there's anything surprising here, right? Either it's not like Blurple and Amethyst Steel just dropped off and then Ruby Steel shot up out of nowhere. So those were the stats for day 2. All right, and with that, I kind of just want to briefly go over the top 8 decks. The finals was a Sapphire Emerald mirror match, and if you look at these two side by side, as far as I can tell, the only difference is the winning deck by James had 1 more John Silver and 1 less improvise, but then Sky's deck had 1 more improvise, 1 less John Silver, but essentially a mirror of a deck. So I just absolutely have to comment on, it is kind of crazy to me that there is no Hades in this deck. Both of these decks, these players had just cut Hades entirely. And my friend Justin was talking to me about how he felt Hades was so clunky lately. And to a degree, I can understand what he's saying, right? It's a 7-cost uninkable that gets rid of 1 character on the field. If you compare that to something like Be Prepared. Be Prepared got rid of every single character for the same cost. Now, of course, Hades leaves behind a body that can then sing and challenge and quest. And that is huge. That is a big difference. But I can also understand that, hey, paying 7 to get a single thing off the board doesn't feel very good. Same with something like Maleficent Dragon, right? Paying 9 ink to get rid of a single character does not feel great when the dragon itself can then just be, counter hit with a Hades or a dragon or a Philip combo or a Basil or whatever your choice is. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's not a whole lot better to be doing than Hades, but clearly these players disagreed, and it obviously worked for them because they got to the finals. So that's the biggest notable thing. The rest of this is very standard. Cinderella's just such a great scry tool. Improvise, I would be curious to know if the +1 came up much with the improvise, or if it was mainly a tool to deal with illusions, like specifically Iago in the purple decks. It's just a cheap way to get rid of Iago. It draws you 1 deeper too. But yeah, I'd be curious to know how much the 1+ damage actually mattered, or if it was just, no, it's just there to banish an Iago and to dig deeper into the deck. I actually like Bend to My Will as a single one of. There's some decks this actually doesn't work very well against. Very good in the mirror unless they just top deck a Clarabelle afterwards. But yeah, very consistent, powerful deck. I'm not surprised to see a mirror in the finals because just how strong and consistent it is. But yeah, getting rid of the Hades is crazy. It's really crazy too how many uninkables this deck is able to run now. So 4, 2, this only runs 7. They both only run 7 uninkables. That's so low. And if you run Hades, like Mother Knows Best clearly fits better than the Hades. Justin was saying that too. It was like, well, it's cheaper. It can be sung. It still gets something off the board. And I will say currently in this game, bouncing a character is so much more powerful than it was in a game like Final Fantasy, where bouncing tended to not be very good because you didn't want them to just replay that character again, and it just gets a super strong entry effect. But because Lorcana is so much slower than that game, bouncing a card really makes a difference. Like Basil's really strong. You can also bounce your own character, so you can replay your Philip, replay your Basil, whatever else you might want to do. So yeah, just that's the biggest thing that stood out to me is, wow, we've got to a point we just cut Hades. It's just too slow. I guess it's just too slow. So Sapphire Emerald. Moving on, we have the Amethyst Steel, and can I make a quick little detour to say how much I hate this site? I hate Inkdex so much. I'm grateful that they host all this information for us, but man, with these ads, I have to constantly reload this page because it gets stuck. I can't scroll up and down, whatever. Nonetheless, so this, let's see, this all looks pretty standard. Running a 1 of Benja, going to be good against Amber Emerald Dogs if they're running the Chromicon. The Amethyst Amber Lantern deck has been showing up as well, so a good way to break lanterns or Junior Woodchuck guidebooks. A good chuck. I like that. How much wood could a good chuck? Just in 1 of, and if nothing else, at his absolute worst, he's still a body that quests for 2 lore. Can't go wrong with that. Most of this is pretty standard. You can build into the Dumbo plan with this Jafar, Olaf, Cobra. This one's still running the Yzma. Yeah, we have so many options for card draw here. I still actually kind of like Yzma, and I don't think anything came out to specifically make her weaker. So, Hypnotic Strength. Yeah, this is all pretty standard. Thunderbolt has helped out now too. So a lot of folks had cut Hypnotic Strength. I actually do still quite like this card a bit. Challenger 2 is decent. Can deal with illusions if they're running the Aggro. So yeah, pretty standard, very consistent list. Not surprised to see it up here. The Black Heron still just kind of makes me chuckle that this is what we're valuing in the game right now, and it kind of makes sense when you're so limited on card options that we're valuing just a 3/3 with no stats, because it's just, you just want the big body, and obviously synergizes well with something like Cheshire Cat, that it gives you more damage to move. Cheshire Cat, man, what a card. Like, this card, again, I was kind of dismissive of it when I first saw it, because I was like, well, we have Belle, why do we want this? But Belle doing it one time versus this annoying little effer just sitting there doing it over and over and over again is very, very obnoxious. Very consistent list. Here we got some Blurple. So these were the top 4. This is by Rob. Royal Guard really coming into it. What did I see that made Royal Guard really work well? I think it was the Demona. So with Demona, Dumbo, the Guidebook, the Ink Runner, but really it's the Demona. Like, if you drop Demona on a board and you have a Royal Guard sitting there and she draws you all 3, he gets the draw for, I mean, he's hitting for 5 already. Like, it was pretty impressive how powered up I saw this guy become. Valuing 9 1-drops in this list too. Really want to make sure we have some of those early answers. Other than that, the rest of this is pretty standard. Still got some Bell with the Cheshire. Sometimes that 3 damage is a huge difference versus the 2. Plus, I love the 4/4. That quest for 2 is nice. Hades a little low. This one is, of course, running the big Hades because it's Blurple. We've completely gone off Monstro. So this deck, and I did see it on stream, like, still kind of struggles to deal with a wide board, but it pretty much always struggled with that. Like, Monstro was hardly a catch-all solution to that because it still required a lot of cards in hand. I do like the 1 of Ink Runner, too, just to deal with counter-evasives if they have their own Genie, their Dumbo, whatever, and that way you don't have to rely on, like, spot removal or specifically your Elsie. You can just go, nah, my Royal Guard actually can suddenly challenge into your Dumbo. That's really nice. And the Guidebook. No Tamatoa in this list, and I get it. Tamatoa is a really sick payoff when it works, but if you don't see the Guidebooks and, like, you draw the Tamatoa, he's just a dead card. He doesn't do anything. So this is a cool list. I like seeing the Royal Guard coming back. Amethyst Emerald. Really? This was in our top 4. These are top. Okay, so this is the top 8. So is this the Brainiac? Oh, okay. This is the lore aggro version. This is when Speci was running the LCCC. Yeah. Aggressive lore aggro. It's I like seeing decks like this come back. Don't get me wrong. Like, it is not fun to play against aggro because it's not fun to just get your teeth kicked in a few turns and the game ends. But I like seeing decks like this because aggro should exist in some form. Inkcaster, Chromicon, your whole point is just keep getting incidental lore through the rows, for gathering knowledge and wisdom, Scrooge is a recursive threat. Look at all these 1-drops. Well, we got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. You could argue Finnick is, like, kind of not a 1-drop if you're trying to go for his effect, but hey, if you just have to, 28, yeah. If you're missing a 1-drop with 28 and you can mulligan 7, that is some bad luck. This is cool. I like this. I just love how simple it is, yeah. Finnick just to give you a little extra protection. Very straightforward. Go, 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 go. Cool. Another Blurple. This one looks a lot similar to the past DLC. We actually are running the Elephant again, who I do really love. Still very strong into the Steel matchup. and gives you a reuse of cards like Hades. Yeah, it's a little slow. This one, not nearly as many 1-drops, and one of the Vanessa. Very much in on the Junior Woodchuck guidebook, though. Yeah, pretty solid standard list. Not a whole lot more to say here. And then we have another purple. This is DKP's list. This version is favoring the Royal Guard. Other than this, the rest of it's pretty standard. Again, really like the one of Ink Runner to deal with some evasives. Hypnotic Strength still quite strong in this list, especially when you have to challenge so much. Actually running 2 Wasabi. When you play this character, you may banish chosen item. Its player gains 1 lore during this turn. Gains evasive. Okay, so it does work with Dumbo. Triggers off of Dumbo, that's nice. Breaking an item gives you a way to deal with Chromicon, and Chromicon was like one of the biggest issues with this deck, the Emerald one specifically. So being able to break that, although it does give them 1 lore, it kind of sucks. The nice thing is too, though, if you have to, it actually gives you a little bit of spot instant lore. You can break your own Ink Runner or your own guidebook. Like if it's at the end of the game, you just need that extra 1. So interesting. Clearly this served him well, maybe since he got to top 8 with it. So I wonder how much the Wasabi came up, but yeah, nice little bit of tech there. I actually kind of like that. And speaking of Blurple's worst matchup, we have some dogs. This is not the Circle of Life version. Okay, so this looks more like the traditional aggressive version. A ton of low-cost cards. Mowgli, while he's not quite to the level of like bare necessities, as your opponent still gets to pick which card they get rid of if he catches them at the right time, can really disrupt some combos. A lot of filtering, singing like this deck has always had. Yeah, all this is pretty standard. So Della's Moon Lullaby is probably the biggest new card for this set with the Mowgli. What does this do? Chosen opposing character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn and draws a card. Nice. So it's a song, draws a card, and it helps protect your board. Yeah, seems very solid. Interesting. I wonder if this is the better version versus the Circle of Life version. This one is probably more consistent, right? And dogs in general can sometimes be inconsistent, but the Circle of Life version, like, it was so strong when it went off. But we've seen it too as a combo deck. If the combo falls apart, it just doesn't do anything. So this one, I wonder if probably a bit more consistent. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so that's the top 8. One other deck I did want to show, just because I've seen this a lot at locals recently, and it did make a big splash, which is Amber Amethyst, a lantern list, if you will. What's kind of funny is, like, this list is essentially mono purple. It's pretty much just Amethyst the deck. And the only thing Amber really adds to it, I think, is Horseman Strikes and the Lantern. And Lantern is almost like ramp. So, like, if you play Lantern on 2, it's kind of like you played Sailor Tipo, because the next turn you can play Genie on 3. And then continuously you can always put your stuff out 1 card ahead of time. So I guess we just have an amalgamation of strong enough purple cards now that you can just use the Lantern to boost it. World's Greatest Criminal Mind is kind of fun, and it does well with support, which is the Elanwi, but I believe this is the only form of support in here, right? Yeah. But I saw it a few times. You support, you give something over 5 strength, then you can banish it with the Criminal Mind. But really the big stuff is the Lantern 100% is the key. And the Horseman Strikes. This deck is very good into the other purple decks that are running the Ursula or the Dumbo or the Genie, all these evasive cards, and you have a card that not only just immediately spot deletes it, same with the Iago, which would have happened anyway, but then it draws a card, it replaces itself. So same with like Hypnotic Strength, Improvise, right? So yeah, this one seems to do really well into the other purple decks just because of being able to delete them, all these evasives on the spot. So I've seen the strength of this deck really good. Yeah, it's got Mowgli for a little bit of disruption too, but at least in my playing against it, the true cards that make this deck work are Lantern and Horseman Strikes. And the others just kind of flavor, and it really is just a mono purple deck. So many rounds I saw not only on stream, but I've seen in person where it's like, other than the Lantern, you just have all purple. You're just playing a purple deck, which just shows you how kind of strong and out of control that color is. And there we go. Some quick thoughts on the DLC and some of the decks. It sounded like a good experience for those that were there, at least compared to Milwaukee. If you were there in person, please let me know your experience. Let me know, and especially if you went to Milwaukee, did you also find it to be a big improvement? Were there aspects you thought were still lacking? How did the Play Hub, play for you overall, etc.? Feel free to let me know. I appreciate you watching so much. And until next time, take care.